One of the most important things about left hand position that affects your intonation is the angle of your fingers. I'm Dr. Valissa Wilworth, and this is Violin Wise. So I want to talk to you about how to place your fingers in such a way to improve your intonation immediately. One of the biggest reasons why beginning and intermediate violinists struggle with intonation is not a case of not hearing it or not knowing where the fingers go. It's actually about the angle of the fingers, and more importantly, or more precisely, I should say, the arc of the fingers. So a lot of players play with an arc that is relatively open. So you end up playing on kind of the pads of the fingers and not on the fingertips. And the problem with this is that we don't have the same level of proprioception. We don't have the same level of agility. And also it changes even just the basic ergonomics of the fingers. And if you try this at home, I think you'll see what I mean. I find with my students, when we just change that angle of the finger from an open arc to a more closed arc, two incredible things happen instantaneously. Number one, the intonation gets immediately better, because the distances then that the fingers need to be suddenly becomes so much clearer. And the second thing is, that's oftentimes very surprising to a student, is that suddenly the sound gets better. So we talk a lot about how sound is coming from the bow, but did you realize that the quality of your sound actually changes depending on the placement of your finger, whether you're on the pads or the tip? And if you've never heard that before, you probably think that I am completely pulling your leg on this. And you might be thinking that makes absolutely no sense. And I agree, it sounds ridiculous, right? And yet I have seen time and time and time again, even in my own playing, even after I was a professional and I started making sure that angle was a little more of a tighter arc. And so another way of thinking of it is that the last part of your finger, we call it the phalanx, the last little part of your finger is vertical, or at least closer to vertical. And that kind of comes in line with people who are playing with a more open arc, where they're playing more like this instead of like this. So you can think of your hand more kind of a little bit like a claw, coming this way and playing this way, because the tips of your fingers have more proprioceptive sensitivity, and you have the most agility for faster playing when you're playing with that rounder arc, not so open, and you're on the tip of the finger. So give it a try, especially if you're having some trouble playing fast and your fingers don't want to move. It's because you need to be doing it from here and less from here. So let me show you on the violin. So you're playing with the fingers have a more, a closer arc, so that my first finger is closer to this than this. So give it a try. I think you're going to find it works pretty well. I've found time and time again over decades that every time I have a student that makes this tiny adjustment, instantaneously their intonation gets better. I'm Dr. Valissa Wilworth, and this is Violin Wise.